Ladies and gentlemen, back at you with another video. A message so hot, I have to bring it to you from two different mics so that you can hear it twice. We've got Mbuyiseni Ndlozi in the house. I'm just playing around, just flossing the fact that I got two expensive mics. This video is coming to you on what is celebrated as Easter, the celebration of the resurrection of Christ. There's a lot of controversy about this day, it and Christmas, about whether these things are actually Christian in any way, or did Christians choose a day where people were celebrating Ishtar, Ashtaroth, and they decided, okay, this looks like it's a trendy day, there's a lot of activity, let's also put in Jesus during that day. And this happened before any of us who are currently alive were alive, and so now we're living with it as a reality. So to you who are out there praying straight to the Lord, I hope that this conflicting issue, this day where others are celebrating their pagan traditions like Ishtar, even the locals have now dedicated this time to Lekhanyan, for example. The Shembe people will be meeting. Ba St. John will be meeting. All kinds of people will be meeting to give praises where they do. So we are all now taken by this day, and it seems it will be held until the end of days. But we are here about Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, and we're going to be listening to him talking on MacG. He's there with Sol Penduka, and the name of the video is Dr. Ndlozi on incest, China exposes designer brands, Donald Trump versus China, Starlink, VAT increase. And at this point, we were going to start the video. He's talking about the tariffs. This moment takes place at around 58 minutes and 22 seconds. Exactly, not around. And so here, he's talking about the tariffs on Lesotho. And with that, we're going to get into Lesotho, the tariffs, the realignment of the global order, the emergence of a multipolar world where the unipolar single power hegemony, the United States, is crumbling. And you've got South Africa in the mix. And in South Africa, you've got the Afro-Forums who are going out and about trying to get the attention of Trump, etc. You'll know I covered Mbuyiseni Ndlozi before. The first time he came on MacG, he spoke some things about the question of cloth, etc., etc. Hey, Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi is inspiring, right? He is. He's got an energy. Yeah, he really does. He's an incredible person. He's not perfect. I did a video on him after that episode of MacG where he went and spoke about cloth, and he spoke about it so romantically, in such a salacious way, and in too close a proximity to those who are young, those who have no business having sex. You think virginity has any correlation with innocence?
It is the pure essence of innocence.
That's backward.
You don't think so?
No.
Why not?
It comes from a culture that seeks to vilify love.
Okay.
And makes us feel ashamed. A culture of interpolating people as having to have shame for their sexual encounters. There is nothing wrong in sex. You should not, as a result of having had sex, be attacked by shame. We must actually remove shame, particularly for the girl child. The girl child is always grown in that situation of having to not be touched by the boys, not to, for themselves also, be comfortable with feeling, with having a positive relationship to their own pleasure.
You remember that, right? And I would go on to criticize that. I found that very improper. Young kids, young girls have no business spreading their legs. You understand? So when you are saying that there's nothing wrong and you are saying Buchiji does not represent innocence, exploring yourself and having sex at a young age is an innocent thing. It says there's no guilt, no shame to be felt at engaging that at a young age. And so having done that video, he went on to start his PowerFM gig, and he brought on Pastor Boshoff. I don't know, maybe I'm feeling myself too much, but I felt like he was redeeming himself because my response to him even quoted scripture for him to know that he was in the wrong about that. So Mbuyiseni Ndlozi just clarified that whether it's lust or whatever, there's no shame to it. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord, oh my Lord. And now let's go to Jeremiah 6:15, for example. You see? As says, there's a portion there that says, are they ashamed of their detestable conduct? No, they have no shame at all. They do not even know how to blush. So this is a Bible identifying people who have no shame, and they've even forgotten how to have shame. The state which it seems Mbuyiseni Ndlozi is trying to elevate people to, because people who come up with these new wacky, weird, twisted disco ideas, they say they are elevating your consciousness. They are bringing you out of a stronghold. And so you can be as light as the air and float among the air. And nah, man. You understand? You heard? So now we're just going to be listening to him in this part. Here he spoke a lot as well about Christ, because after I covered him on those controversial remarks, he would now announce that he is going to Power FM. And on Power FM, in the first episode, that's when Trump was busy blasting Lesotho, saying that it's a country that nobody even knows about.
Trump ran a shop that sold denim jeans. Lesotho is one of the big suppliers from its textile industry. It's one of the big suppliers of denim jeans, in particular Levi, which are, at the moment, is one of the key to Beyonce's performances, to Beyonce's brands. How can you not know Lesotho?
And now we see them on the Tariffs, and that's why it's convenient to listen to this. So in his first episode on Power FM, he spoke about that, and then he would then bring on Pastor At Boshoff. And that's when I kind of started to detect that Mbuyiseni Ndlozi seems to be somebody who is not ashamed of the gospel, if I can say. He is wearing it. He's wearing Christ with his intellectualism, because people like to believe that if you are a believer in Christ, you are basically somebody who believes in flat earth, somebody who is into conspiracy theories, somebody who is not an intellectual. They believe that you cannot produce anything that supports what it is that you accept, what it is that you believe to be true about this world, whose maker is unseen. But there seems to be a document that claims to be telling us the truth about who he is. And in it, we encounter a Jesus Christ who presents himself as Savior of the world. So he seems like he's embracing and able to speak on these issues, but when you actually go deeper and you listen to his view, it's not there. It's not full stack as yet. He has room to grow.
There is nobody in the world, as far as I'm concerned, who sought the face of God earnestly.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether they were speaking Taekwanese or Fanagalogo. If they sought God with all their hearts, their minds, their spirit, I believe that God would have revealed himself to them. He may have not said Jesus, but he certainly gave them the sacrificial lamb. And that is the true power of the prophetic spirit. You will be able to drink not just from the Christian cup. You will be able to drink from Buddhism.
Yes.
You'll be able to drink from a lot of divine experiences across the world.
Yes.
There is no reason to denigrate them.
But nonetheless, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi fanboy up in the hizza, up in the shized, note the white shirt and the beanie over there. I'm still an admirer of his. We're going to be getting into this video, and I hope that he improves on his spiritual journey. In the next video, I'll probably talk about the comments that he made on Christ, Ancestral, worship, ZCC, Matotanase Wesile, where he'll be spending Easter. He said that it's at a church in Soweto. I think there's an event at FNB Stadium. Did he say that? I think he did. We'll look at that in another video. For now, let's get into this one. Here is Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi.
So what is targeted in Lesotho at the textile is the textile base of the Chinese. So I mean, Lesotho supplies in a way many people didn't know. Like a lot of jeans. Levi jeans and whatever, they come from Lesotho.
That's crazy.
Wow, man.
Yeah, they come from Lesotho. So that's why Lesotho got that crazy. He's trying to stop redirection where the Chinese are going to use different mechanisms to get their products to that market, because the United States certainly represents the highest percentage of consumers in the world. Certainly it does that. So I don't see, with regards to the trade policy, there is no way you're going to look back. The United States is struggling with the fact that it is no longer, its industrial power is no longer the only power in the world. To try and, we have entered full steam a bipolar world, a world where there are multiple superpowers.
In this trade war, who's got the chances of losing the most between China and USA? Who's got more to lose?
It's hard to say. It's very hard to say. Americans can take a knock. I mean, what are we looking at? Majority of the products are going to arrive expensive. And then most consumers won't be able to afford them. China is losing, definitely, in that sense. But what does that lead to? Will really Nike and all those people relocate the factories? That's not what Trump is looking for. Trump is looking for a deal where the Chinese buy high-end goods, from the, because that's what that market, produces. I don't know. And the Chinese are very determined, my man. They are very determined. And I don't know. I think there are two risks. The first risk is you can only increase to a certain extent. So the first risk is a military confrontation. I mean, through trade routes and all of that. That's the first risk that we may face, and it will destabilize the world. The second risk is the total collapse of dispute resolution international forums like WTO, where they are totally discredited. Where will you go if you are the European Union, if you're South Africa, to go and have some framework of an international, negotiation of treaties and all of that? And these were all institutions propped up by the United States. Is flattening and is defying them. So the breakdown of international or multilateral institutions takes us to a very uncertain global future. I don't think it's desirable for anyone.
And how does this affect South Africa? Because already the US is attacking us, man, with all this stuff they've been doing.
Yeah, you saw what happened with our Trump imposing 31%, I think. But he exempted minerals.
Hey, y'all. So you who have been watching and following this channel have, of course, come to see the concerted effort. Is that the correct term? Concerted. Yes. Constant, not stopping, persistent by the Ronaldos and the Colonel Chris Wyatts. You've seen that has been a decision, a choice, an operation to threaten South Africa, to quiet the baby, to make this territory south of this continent bow and be afraid of Trump in a special way out of all African countries. I think, ladies and gentlemen, you who don't see how special that makes us, if you don't know who we are as South Africa, our position in the world, our position on the continent, the concentration of successful white people on the African continent is here. This country here, outside of the United States, represents the territory with some of the most arrogant black people who are defiant to white supremacy and its attempt to dominate the whole world. This country here is the country of the Julius Malemas. It's the country where black people here are supercharged with an attitude. They stand in the way of everybody, the whole continent, bowing down pretty much. And so some kind of example, some kind of exertion of dominance needs to be displayed by the US during Trump's administration, this second term. You can see by the presence of the Colonel Chris Wyatt over there that there's been, and this is mentioned by Nota as well, that this was planned some time ago. And this is a plan that is going quite hard on communism. The EFF in particular seem to have locked horns with white supremacy. The threatening of white people, or the perceived threatening of them, by singing of the song Kill the Boer, or actual threats from them Kritamas who have spoken things. This has had white people alarmed because they feel that there should be no symbol of such at all on the world. At this point, the white race is winning and should be given glory and the respect that they deserve. The African continent should be bowing, but there's symbols of defiance at the very bottom over there. People who've got internet access who are getting all up on YouTube and the Twitters talking about Trump in the similar ways that he's being spoken about by the Democrats, the left, those who absolutely hate him. And then it's this flexing of white supremacy. I've been on that for some time. I'll branch off. We'll get back to Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi just now. Then on the other hand, we are witnessing that the US is actually crumbling. The US is actually falling apart. And we've been speaking about this. The country is in debt. The country has been living like a celebrity, like a rapper. The country itself is a symbol of the people's mindset, their pursuit of superiority and wealth and a good life from debt. And so the emperor has no clothes. The United States has been a lot of hype. The country has not grown from productivity growth. It has been growing from debt, from borrowing. And now it's time to pop the bubble and deflate and let the gas out. People are holding on to meme coins, altcoins, scam coins and shit coins. You've got a stock market that just jumps and collapses because of confidence, news, panic, as we saw with the very large sell-off when the Chinese introduced their AI DeepSeek R1. And we saw tech stocks being sold off, people letting them go because they thought, especially Nvidia being the one who contributed to a large portion of the pulling down of tech stocks, because the Chinese with their DeepSeek R1 model and chat interface had achieved levels that were achieved by ChatGPT and OpenAI and their O3 model, reasoning, a thinking model, with much fewer chips, with much fewer silicon, with less powerful GPUs. And so people sold off their stocks believing that there won't be such a demand for high capacity GPUs like the H100s and the new series of Nvidia Blackwell chips, the next generation, super powerful stuff. So based on fear and panic, we see things rise and things just fall, and we start to see that money is not really real, and the American people are holding on to a balloon with air, and there needs to be a controlled demolition. There needs to be a controlled releasing. You know when you've been driving on a road on tar and your tires were inflated for the road, and now you are going to be driving on soil and on rocky pebbles and on uneven surfaces. You need to deflate your tires when you go off-road. So there needs to be a deflation of the air. The country needs to become smaller without people noticing that it is being made smaller because it always was smaller. The rest of it has been hype. The country needs to get a haircut, and now we can see that they are shorter, not as tall as they actually were. And as they do that, they have to huff and puff and do things and create news. Look over there, look over there, look over there. Don't look at the fact that we are failing. Let's look at a bit more of this and hear Mbuyiseni Ndlozi's view on it. But just know these are some of the things that are well known about the situation right now. And there's no way we are going to be made fearful because we know the truth. So what I've been telling you, plus what he's saying right now, let's keep on hearing it.
Platinum group metals. Because South Africa supplies about 38% of the platinum group metals, 38% of US's.
For real?
Yes. Because, we are the platinum capital of the world. Us and Zimbabwe.
We're carbs.
That I think it's the reason South Africa's government is so calm.
Yes.
I mean, if you look at them, they're not going. They don't have their heads spinning.
Yes.
They've got that ticket, and it's a real ticket. It's a real ticket. They're not just not panicking. They've got a ticket. What? America needs. And the second largest is Russia and
America needs South Africa.
Russia and Germany. But it's possible that even the German ones come from South Africa. I haven't studied that value chain properly, but certainly that's what South Africa's negotiation ticket is.
And why do you think he's attacking us? Well, the US, is it because of the Israel-Palestine? ICJ.
It's convoluted for me. On the one hand, is it Afrikaners? I mean, Trump is committed to a lie. I don't know if somebody could say, okay, Mr. President, there's a genocide. Yes, there's a genocide against Afrikaners. In the last year, how many of them were killed? And compare that to areas where there's actual numbers of people who are killed. It's going to be an embarrassing figure. It's going to be definitely an embarrassing figure because of the figures in South Africa of murder. The highest is black men. It's black. Actually, it's much higher. Black men killing black men. There is no ethnic targeting in relation to murder numbers. So on the one hand, there's that. I certainly think coincidentally, Elon Musk was very cool with us, if you remember. Was cool with Ramaphosa. They were calling each other and all of that. And at some point,
I gotta pee.
Starlink deal.
Dango.
You know, he's like, no, I'm not going to give BEE people anything. That's racism. That's the first, I think, link with the AfriForum campaign. Because those PayPal people are former South Africans or they are South Africans, depending on how you put it. So they've got a huge audience with President Trump. I think they put a lot of money into his campaign.
And a lot of influence as well.
Yeah, they seem to have, certainly the South Africa relations, I can't put it down to anything else except that PayPal mafia.
Makes sense, man. Speaking about Starlink, Lesotho has granted a license to take billionaire Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet service. Hours after denying it was fast-tracking the process as part of the US tariff concessions. The small African kingdom was hit with month-to-month tariffs of 50% on goods exported to the United States, the highest for any single nation on President Donald Trump's now paused tariffs list. The levies were reduced last week to 10% for a 90-day reprieve. The Lesotho Communications Authority and Starlink, owned by Trump's close advisor Musk, made its application in April 2024 and will be issued with a license valid for 10 years. So that means if you're in Bloom, you can just go across the mountain and then you
get Starlink.
You don't have to cross. You'll be able to connect maybe 60 k's radius around the border.
You take on that Paduka.
No, it feels like they capitulated, you know. Obviously buckled under the pressure. That's what I'm saying, man. I'm fine, it's the matric. I start a PhD, I'm fine. But yeah, it feels like they just buckled.
Did you hear Marula say pussy luminous?
No! I saw that. I saw you tweeted it. You pussy up there.
What is that word again?
Yeah. Pussy what?
What's this guy going on about? Yeah, man.
I didn't hear that, bro.
Yeah. But I think it makes sense now that Mbuyiseni shed light. The fact that, and you know, bro, when you go to Lesotho, the Chinese pretty much run the show.
Yeah.
You know, if you can't get in it, I remember we couldn't get like alcohol because all places were closed, and a Chinese guy, you know.
Yes, I remember.
Oh, you were there, yeah.
So
Chinese run. There was so much influence, and obviously, if Trump, you know, punishes Lesotho with tariffs, then jobs get lost within Lesotho. Then China will try to redirect through a different country, you know, getting their stuff in America. So they've got so much to lose, you know. They caught in the middle, but it feels like they're hoping. It's like us now. Going to the ICJ and dropping the case against Israel because we hope to please Trump, bringing Starlink in because we hope to please Elon. If you make Elon happy, Trump is happy. So I think that's their play. I don't know though, because he just highlighted that it's not even about Starlink, you know, it's about China's presence in Lesotho.
All right. Also, Kenny Kunene calls EFF leader Julius Malema a toothless toy soldier. This comes after Malema criticized US president on his utterances against South Africa, the tariffs, and his attendance of the G20 summit to be held in SA. Your thoughts on that, man? What do you think? Doctor.
Dr. Saul.
Dokotela. Hayi, dokotela.
Ndlozi.
Is there politics in it?
The previous question was political. Can we exchange? I can break down. There's nothing of money, of significant money that Elon is going to make in Lesotho with that deal.
Yeah, nothing at all.
Zero.
Zero.
I mean, half of that population lives here.
Yeah.
It's just it won't work. I mean, I don't know about Kenny and the duty of a revolutionary is always to agitate. And I think that we must not retreat and demonize people who sing to Blipon. No. We sting this term every day when we sing the national anthem.
So, I'm back. We have dealt with those parts. And now there's an extra question before we go and end off the video. The question of kill the Boer, kill the farmer. They are talking about it. He's no longer a member of the EFF. However, he still has his understanding of the song and its place. And he's saying that the white supremacist response that has risen against this song, really, I can put myself in their position. I can try to raise my arrogance and my sense of self to such high levels. And I can kind of feel how disrespected white supremacy might be feeling. And so they've gone now to pursue the singing of the song, to highlight it every time it's sung during this Trump administration, to beam it back to him and say, the South Africans are being naughty. We have our eyes on them to make sure that whenever it's sung, the white people are not just taking it as normal and walking away. Hence, Colonel Chris Wyatt has shown up on the scene to make sure, along with the Ronaldo hosts, that the world gets attention so that they send chills down the spines of white people globally, so that South Africa, as this song continues to be sung on these lands, South Africa may have a particular soiled image, an image of cannibals, an image of a country full of savages who are black, who hate the superior people, the people who feed them. And so he's saying, no, let the song be understood for what it is. It's an old song. It's always been sung. The new attention on it does not magnify the song or say anything about it at all. It's like the world experiencing earthquakes and then suddenly the instruments or the detection capacity across the world for detecting earthquakes increases, and there's infrastructure put all over the world to track every time there's an earthquake. Of course, from the time those instruments are put in, from the time attention is paid towards that, you'll see more of it, more earthquakes. But it doesn't mean the world was silent and not quaking before you started measuring and paying attention. So he's just saying balance. There's people who are overblowing this. There's this song, which is a song sang to remind people of a certain struggle, which has not ended. It's a struggle for economic liberation as well. Mandela did say that freedom without economic emancipation, without economic participation, is nothing. Or did he say democracy without money is nothing? Whatever. So let's finish with the portion about the killing of Dubulipunu and we'll be out of here.
We must not bow, and I don't think, certainly, if you want to do proper international relations, you can make the same message that Kenny wants to, throw without demonizing Dubulipunu. On that, we must all take Julius's side because that's our heritage.
We must take Julius's side. He's still a friend.
And the song is important even the day we have the land. There is no relationship between singing that song even during the struggle and a hatred, racial hatred against white people. I've never met blacks who hate whites. I've never. I don't know.
Have you met Andy Lem Kritama? Let me ask that question for the Ronaldos. I see.
All our ancestors didn't teach us hatred. Mama Winnie, even Peter Mokaba, who liked to chant Dubulipunu, they never spread hate.
Oh, you're so right, because when I was at Prime Media, we had a meeting with John Robbie. You know John Robbie?
Yeah.
702. And he said something, I'm like, till this day, I didn't understand it. He was like, black people are incapable of being racist. I'm like, what does he mean by that? You know, when you ask that, it's the same thing, right?
No.
Oh,
No.
Yeah, it sounded like, it sounded like the same
You would
thing.
have to
It's an interesting question. I've been saying that, yes, it's possible to be a black person who is racist. Now, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, I've heard his definition. It's one that says, without economic means, without superiority, without money, without historic advantage, it's not possible to be racist towards someone. So if a rich black family, if the Mutsipes decided to shout and be discriminatory and derogatory in the worst ways to white people, they are richer than the majority of black people and white people. And so maybe that would be racism, because the money to exclude you, to impact your life. I understand that, and I'd like to believe that racism evolved. You know about concepts having their classic term and then having a prefix neo this. Nazis of old and neo-Nazis. Colonialism and colonizers and neocons. Neo-colonialists, the plan to divide up Africa into new territories again and such. And so I think there's an old original racism which came from the difference in skin tone. Hence, God had told his people of different colors to love their neighbor as they love themselves. There's a racism that came from the fall. There's a racism that came with pride of Lucifer when he introduced it to people. That original pride may have existed during feudalism and from the very beginning. And then in the industrialized world, where people started getting mega rich, when the white people, on top of a superiority complex from Lucifer, a pride, a sin of pride, then there was the addition of money. So now people got to be kings and queens and be racist. So now the superiority has been reinforced. In the olden days, kings and queens could have racism and superiority from what they believe themselves to be, which is divine appointees here on earth to run society. That would be a superiority racist complex with money. But then that sort of racism was not available to the general public. Everybody just had the racism of saying, I'm white, you're black. But then now people had whiteness and wealth. And that's the racism that he's talking about. However, there is one where a person may be black and have a superior attitude, where the superiority may even be more toxic as it is fueled by the belief that black is deity, black is closer to God. So now this one is not a rich, my skin is nicer than yours racism, white racism. This one is a black, I was made first and I'm your parent. You are my child, you are my descendant. I'm closer to God. You are actually made by and come from a monkey called the Neanderthal. And I am the Homo sapien created by God. You are a mutation that came from somewhere else. That creates very hectic black racists. And I believe that that exists. But let's just listen to this and we are out of here.
You would have to say
Sounded like the same thing.
racist against whites.
Yes.
You have to complete it that way.
That's what he means.
Yeah.
The racism.
Yeah.
And I was like, it made me feel some type of way. I'm like, what are you saying?
It sort of is right, man.
Yeah, because, you know, the fear of dogs, the mere fear of heights, or the fear of spiders, fear of blacks, fear of whites, and so on and so forth. But racism is a certain structural capability of exclusion, the capacity to exclude you from admissions. I wouldn't really quite matter what my neighbor thinks of me. It wouldn't matter until it closes the road for me to go to school. White supremacy is a structural power. Is that when you are hated by whites, you will have a sitting president of the most powerful, most industrial, most scientific.
And I have a slight problem with that. Of course, you don't have to care what your white neighbor thinks about you. You can live without it as long as they are not blocking you and prohibiting you. But we have to understand that the prohibition, should it happen, and when it does happen, we're seeing it when it raises ugly head in the form of the Afro-Forums. It's because it was an attitude that was brewing silently at first, which you didn't mind at first. But then once it shows up you are a reactionary and you're now having to deal with an extreme manifestation, an incursion now, an exclusion of you, a blockage of you. And I say it's best to deal with it when it's an attitude, when it's silent, when it's in the heart, when it's in the mind. Deal with it with what God said. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. We are all God's people. I'm out of here.
Country in the world. That's the country in which Albert Einstein, ended up, the father of relativity. That's the country in which some of the brilliant minds in the world, some of the brilliant discoveries were made, Thomas Edison and all those people. That's America. And that country can have a president who believes in non-existing phenomena. He can believe that there is a genocide against white people. Only white supremacy can win, can convince Donald Trump of a lie of that magnitude. It's the privilege that comes with white supremacy. And I think that's maybe what John Robbie was trying to get to. But I'm saying that the struggle in South Africa never ever arrived at we must hate whites. Not Subukwe, not Mandela, not Steve Biko, not Winnie Mandela, not Charlotte Maxeke. None of them taught that particular discourse. And
ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to hear Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi outside of the EFF affirming that there is and should not be hatred for white people. And we all now aspire and work towards a prosperous and united South Africa, little by little condemning racism from the blacks and the whites, moving along and exposing those who are trying to aggravate it, like the Ronaldos. We will see you next time. Hope you like, hope you comment, hope you share. Enjoy your Easter.